people, and welcome to our final lesson of this wonderful Monday, and that is for writing. We are going to finish our Monday with writing. So let's check out our learning target for today. It says, I can draft the ending of my personal narrative to tell what I felt, thought, or learned. So we have been working through the drafting stage of our personal narrative. We started with the beginning, then we drafted the middle, and today we are working on the ending. So after today, everyone is going to have a completed draft of their personal narrative. And lucky for us, the ending is usually the shortest part of our story, but it's the last thing our reader reads, so we want to make sure it's extra fantastic at the end. And like I mentioned, we are in the drafting stage of the writing process. We already did planning, we're almost done with drafting, and then on Wednesday, we are going to move to the editing stage of writing. So we really want to make sure today that we finish our drafting stage strong, so the editing can be a little simpler for us on Wednesday. And also, like we just talked about, we are in the end of our personal narrative. We started with the beginning, and we introduced our story. Then we talked about the middle, and we told the action in order. And finally, we're at the end, when we, of course, need to tell how the story ended. But that's not all we're going to include at the end. Of course, it's important to tell what happened at the end and the last event in our story. But we're also going to include one of these three things. A lot of us in our story plan already included I felt in the end of your outline. For example, mine said, I felt very excited. That's a great way to end. That's an awesome emotion to tell your reader more. But you have more options than that. You can talk about what I thought or I learned. These are all great ways to end your story, and you have the choice to pick which one you want to talk about. So I felt is going to talk about your feelings. How did this event make you feel? For example, I felt excited. Excited is a feeling. So that's our first option. You could also talk about, what did you think about? I thought, what were you thinking about at the end of this story? I thought it was great. That means you approved of it. You had a good time. And our third option, which sometimes is usually the trickier one, is I learned. What did you learn at the end of your story? Did you learn about someplace new? Did you learn that you could do something you didn't think you could do before? For example, I learned how to ride my bike. That's an awesome end to the story. All three of these talk about how this story had a happy ending and it was positive. When we're drafting the end of our personal narratives today, you can choose to end your final story with how you felt, what you thought, or what you learned. And that's all going to be up to you and what your story was about. So today, you are going to first just watch me draft the end of my story to learn how I'm thinking about it and how we can go about doing it. But before we get there, I just want you to quickly get up out of your seats real quick. I know we just started, but why not get our body moving? So stand up, and I have a question for you. If you were at a pool, would you rather go on the diving board, or would you rather go on a water slide? If you pick a diving board, you're going to be a bird. If you pick a water slide, you are going to be a snake. You're at a pool. What would you rather go on? I love water slides, so I'm going to act like a snake for 5 seconds. Okay, here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The end. Our acting days are over. So go ahead and sit back down at your seat, because we are going to see how my story of taking my driver's test is going to come to an end. Okay, in order to end of my personal narrative, I need two things. I need my story plan, my outline, and I need the rest of my draft. So far, we've done the beginning and the middle. I have two separate paragraphs to show the different parts of my story. And so up here on my piece of paper, I have the ending of the middle of my personal narrative. So before I start writing my end, I'm going to make sure to skip a line and start below it. I want to make sure to leave some space so I know the difference between the middle and the end of my story. So everyone's going to skip a line on their paper before they start writing. And my next step is I'm going to look at my outline. What did it say on the end of my story plan? It said, in the end, I passed my driver's test. I felt excited. Those are two great complete sentences that I can use in the end of my personal narrative. But of course, I want to give more detail and describe more about the ending. So I'm first going to start with that first sentence, in the end. That's a great phrase, so my reader knows that I'm starting to talk about the end of the story. So that's what I'm going to write. In the end, I passed my driver's test. Awesome! And I have an exclamation point because it was a good thing. It was happy. So now I'm going to go back to my outline, and it says, I felt very excited. Okay, I did feel excited, but I want to talk about more with that. What did I do because I felt excited? How did I show that I was excited? Let me write that. I felt excited. So, I'm talking about what I did because of that. So, I ran to my dad and showed him my score. So I'm saying I felt excited, and because of that, I ran to my dad and I showed him my score because I was proud of it and I wanted him to know. So let's read what I have so far. In the end, I passed my driver's test. I felt excited, so I ran to my dad and showed him my score. Those are two great sentences. This is the end of my story, so I don't really need to write a whole lot more beyond that. But I want to make sure I'm ending my story with either how I felt, what I thought, or what I learned. And I'm going to choose what I learned. I'm going to choose the last one. And I learned that I could do something scary. Driving for me is scary, and I learned that I could do it. So I'm going to end my personal narrative on that note. So here we go. I learned that I can do scary things. The end. That is my quick but descriptive end to my personal narrative. I talked about what happened at the end, how I felt, what I did to show that, and also how I learned. In 3 short sentences, I included so much detail and gave so much information about the end of my story. Let's just read it one more time. It says, in the end, I passed my driver's test. I felt excited, so I ran to my dad and showed him my score. I learned that I can do scary things. It's super quick, but I want you to make sure that those 3 sentences, or 4 or 5, are the best way you can write to end your personal narrative. Because remember, like I said, this is the last thing your reader's going to read, so you want to end with a bang. So right now, it's going to be your job to draft the ending of your personal narrative. You're going to take a look at your story plan, look at what you already planned for the ending, and then just add a little bit more. Remember, you have the choice of 3 things to include. Your 3 choices in the end are to include a sentence about I felt, I thought, or I learned. You can use these exact sentence frames if you would like to end your story. So you're going to pick just one, and that will be your final sentence in the ending of your personal narrative. Okay, Super Scholars, you're going to take the draft that you already have. Remember, you're going to skip that line, add onto it, and write about how your fabulous story came to an end by choosing one of these 3 options. Then, of course, you're going to take that clear picture and show me how your story ends. I can't wait for us to finish the drafting stage of the writing process. Good luck, and let's get to work.